Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia. That is Mike Tagliere and Kyle Yates. And today, it's time for some scorching hot takes. Don't get too close to the YouTube channel. Don't get too close to your earphones because the hot takes are going to be scorching hot. And it's very early, so we can have some fun with this. And I typically am not somebody that loves the hot takes. There's way too much of that on the Twitterverse, so this is more to have some fun, get a little discussion. I'm not a big fan of the hot taking this and that, and then nobody ever holds himself accountable and they just say nonsense. But look, we do a very good job of accountability here. I think it's time to have a little bit of fun. So today, Tags and Yates are going to give you some of their hot takes. I've got a few as well as we enter the 2021 NFL season. And boys, I hope that you have your oven mitts on, because obviously I know you've been working very hard on these takes, getting them red hot for today. Tags, are you able to even unload yours because they're so hot?
I don't even know if I'm ready to talk about hot takes, because we just found out before the show that Pizzapia has never heard of Menards.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. Never heard of that before.
I was shocked.
That's bananas.
But it's like things that don't exist on the... Like, I'm an East Coast kid, right? I grew up in Brooklyn and New Jersey, and we don't have Menards. I'm sure there's things that we have here that you've never, like,
sure. I just
Midwest.
thought that Menards was like a countrywide, like,
global
staple.
thing, yeah.
You know, but is this just a Midwest thing?
I don't know. Now I have to figure that out. And you know what? I hate Home Depot anyway, and I hate Lowe's, and I hate all those places. You know why? Because every time I go to an aisle and I ask for somebody for help for something, all anybody knows is that aisle. Like, I work in aisle 6. All I know is this. Where can you find garden hoses? Oh, geez, I don't know. You might have to ask Frank. Frank is in aisle 8, and like that's it. They never get out of their aisle.
And then you go to aisle 8, and Frank ain't there.
Oh,
so.
Frank's not there. It's some other guy named, Pete. And then Pete's like, I don't know, man. I work at plumbing. I have no idea.
I'm just filling in.
That is every experience ever when trying to find something. And then and then the whole light bulbs thing too. It's like you go to that light bulb aisle now, and everything is so different. It's like this was a 75 watt bulb, and now it's 150, and now it's the equivalent of this, and it's LED, and I don't even know what to buy anymore. So you could take your Menards and you could stick it with your hot takes. I've
been to Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot more times than I can absolutely count this past week, building a deck this week. So you guys have had your fun with the podcast the past couple episodes, just the two of you, and so I had to come back in here. It'll be fun.
Yes, we needed you back. I'm glad to have you back here, and I'm glad that the deck is coming along. That was me last spring where I rebuilt the entire thing underneath. So I'm glad you're doing it now.
Never again.
Nope, you do it once, and then that's it. That's what you do. All right. So today, like I said, we're going to go through these hot takes. We're going to talk about these fabulous different ideas that we have of things that might come true in this NFL season that hasn't even kicked off officially yet, but we're getting there. So I want to make sure we also remind everybody, if you want that Calvin Ridley jersey, which is pretty hot in its own right, thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction, go to fantasypros.com/contest. All you got to do is leave a screenshot, that's it, of a review on Apple Podcasts or CastBox. You take the screenshot of your review there, you fill out the form at fantasypros.com/contest, and just like that, you're entered to win the Calvin Ridley jersey and every other giveaway from now to the end of time. So go do it. We're trying to give you free stuff. Just take it. Again, that's thanks to our friends at Pristine Auction. Yates, since you've been building a deck forever, let's start with you. Let's get your takes, and we're going to grade them, I think, in wing sauces. That's what I want to do today. How hot your takes are, and correlate them to wings, because I like wings. And as a bald guy, and the other bald guys will know out there, like Tags, who hides his under his hat, when you eat the hot wings,
shots fired,
you start to sweat a little bit, just like I am today after second vaccine number 2. I'm soldiering through. I already had
you're sweating all right.
I'm sweating all right. I already had the sexy vaccine years ago, clearly. This is the second vaccine. But look, I'm here.
We need Joe to stop talking. All right, I'm going for
Yates,
number 5 here. I'm going honey barbecue. Let's just dip our toes into the water, fellas. Let's go with Mac Jones won't start a single game in 2021. Obviously, with a first-round pick there for the New England Patriots at pick number 15. I think that if we get... with Cam Newton last year, it was, well, obviously he was not great. You look at the passing touchdown totals.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, you hadn't noticed. Speaks for itself there. But with the COVID situation that he dealt with, and he's talked about it, where once he dealt with COVID, he tested positive, and then he just never felt right throughout the rest of the year. And that happened with several other athletes that we've heard. And also, you look at the playmakers that he had around him, not necessarily anything to write home about. So I think with a healthy Cam Newton, and I've said this since Mac Jones was drafted to New England, you're going to get Mac Jones and Cam Newton side by side in training camp, and it's not going to even be a competition. So I'm just throwing this one out here saying that Mac Jones won't start a single game in 2021 unless, Cam Newton has a season-ending injury. So I think that we're going to see a full season of Cam, and if that is the case, then he is an absolute value in fantasy football right now because of his red zone rushing attempts last year. Ridiculous numbers. So I will go Mac Jones won't start a single game in 2021.
You know what? This is fun because my first hot take, and obviously this is spicier than yours, is Mac Jones is the starter week 1.
Oh,
how about
here we go.
that? You like that? It said scorching hot takes. That's right. Wow. This is definitely on the hotter scale for sure. This has got like that jalapeno kind of kick to it. And here you go. You just drafted the young rookie quarterback. Everything you just said about Cam Newton is true. It was terrible. So what are we doing? Yeah, they're paying Cam Newton a lot of money, but they have the luxury to do that because of where they were at the salary cap. So who cares? All that was an insurance policy just in case they couldn't get a quarterback that they liked. Well, they got a quarterback that they liked. And I think with a good preseason, maybe, just maybe, you see Mac Jones start the season there. And that would shock everybody. But you know what? If you're going to pay for a first-round quarterback, what is the trend? Typically, those guys are starters when you get to week 1. Tags, what's your first hot take of the show?
My first hot take is that we talked about him quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and it's Najee Harris. Najee Harris finishes a top 5 running back in his rookie season. While going through projections, you'll start to figure out the running backs that you anticipate getting more than 250 carries in a season. And so far, I only have 8 of them. That's all I can come across, that I have 8 running backs there. It's Derrick Henry, it's Dalvin Cook, it's Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Ezekiel Elliott, and Joe Mixon. And then Najee Harris is also in that. And Najee Harris, actually, in my projections, is coming out around 288 carries. So it's quite a bit over that 250 carry threshold. You also have receiving work with a quarterback who has turned into a check down monster. If you look last year, the average depth of target for Deontay Johnson, for Juju Smith-Schuster, for these guys, it's nowhere because Ben's afraid of getting hit now. He doesn't want to get hit. He's checking down more. They're lining up Najee Harris at wide receiver. You don't draft this guy in the first round to let him sit on the bench. You're going to give him touches right out of the gate. And I wasn't even too aggressive with the touchdowns. I gave him 9 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns on the season. So again, I didn't even go over the top. It was like, all right, can I expect one less, one more? I could see it going either way. But in the projections, that's where he comes out, right around Ezekiel Elliott, to be honest with you. So Najee Harris is a top 5 running back this rookie season.
And you could probably expect at least one major injury to one of the top guys because that's just the nature of the position. So you factor that in as well. That's not that crazy. I'd say that's like a medium. That's like a medium hot wing.
When he's RB15 in ECR, I feel like it's pretty hot.
Look, I think that by the time we get to August, that's going to be different. Let's go with round 2. Now, I've got one for Najee Harris, so I'll start this round. Najee Harris and Travis Etienne both finish as RB1s in full point PPR. There you go. There's my hot, scorching take on that. And this is because, number one, obviously I'm kind of riding this Najee Harris train along with Tags here, and he just gave you the projections he's got, and they're not crazy. Those projections are not crazy. The workload may be a little higher, but that's what you drafted this guy for. And you need more balance desperately to that offense in Pittsburgh. We saw that last year. They became so one-dimensional, and by the second half of the year, teams knew exactly how to game plan against them, and then you saw them sputter out of control. And Travis Etienne, for me, this is one that I think gets better as it goes. Might not start off red hot, but I think it will get better as it goes. And as we saw Jonathan Taylor, as we saw David Montgomery, we saw running backs that have great second halves and move themselves into RB1 territory just with a great second half. You factor in, obviously, Trevor Lawrence and the comfortability factor there with Travis Etienne, and I think the way they want to use him in full point PPR, this is very possible, but kind of a hot take right now, considering, like you said, the ECR. Yates, what's your second scorching hot take?
I'm happy that you went right to me after yours because I've got Travis Etienne will have as many targets in 2021 as Saquon Barkley did in his rookie season. That was 121 targets. So you talk about Travis Etienne potentially finishing as an RB1. This is how he does it, is on the back of ridiculous target volume. Urban Meyer has come out and said that they wanted Kadarius Toney there at pick number 25, and they wanted him because they wanted those cheap manufactured touches, right? Just get the ball in his hands on jet passes, touch passes behind the line of scrimmage. I think we're going to see a lot of formations where we do have Travis Etienne on the field alongside with James Robinson, right? Etienne motioning out of the backfield in pre-snap motion, and then Robinson as that back alongside Trevor Lawrence. So I think Etienne, they're going to do everything that they can to get the ball in his hands, and that's going to lead to a lot of fantasy production. So go out on a limb here and say that Travis Etienne as many targets as Saquon Barkley did in his rookie season.
All right, Tags, let's have another round here. Finish out number 2 in your hot takes, I believe. Yes?
Yes, this one might not seem bold to some. I'm really not good with bold predictions because I'm too logical for those. But when it comes to this,
that like the weirdest humble brag back end self compliment? I'm not so good with this because I'm so logical and humble about all the good work that I do. But here's a hot take, sort of, kind.
Stop it. But no, this one is that AJ Brown finishes as the wide receiver 1, like the number 1 overall wide receiver, and that's really tough to say because you start thinking about the guys like Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, if Aaron Rodgers plays, Tyreek Hill. I started looking at the schedule for the Chiefs. The Chiefs' schedule is not very good when it comes to quarterbacks, wide receivers. Obviously, they're going to overcome a lot of that, but still, it's an obstacle. Devontae Adams has to deal with obstacles, and Aaron Rodgers, is he not going to play? You start working your way down this list, and it's like, all right, well, was Josh Allen's 2020 Cam Newton's 2013 or whatever that was, or 2015, whatever it was that, that big year for Cam, was that Josh Allen's year? I'm not saying that that's the case because it's so early in Allen's career that it's like he's progressed every step of the way, but it's possible. So it's like those are question marks, whereas A.J. Brown continues to defy efficiency. Ryan Tannehill have a bond. There's no other pass catchers here. All those vacated targets. The defense is kind of like in a rebuild mode. They lost Arthur Smith, so they're probably going to throw the ball more. Everything is aligning for him to be a guy that I would say sees a minimum of 140 targets, and I think the ceiling is there for him to see upwards of 170.
Is the addition potentially, again, as we're recording this, we don't know, if they add Julio Jones, does that change it? Or does it actually make you like it more just because Julio Jones has to be accounted for too? Just putting it out there.
I mean, both of them would just, that would be a great football move, but it would hurt fantasy football. It would hurt Julio. It would hurt A.J. Brown because these two are they're studs. And that's, but it's almost like the Julio Calvin Ridley thing where it's like you have to pick your poison. I know A.J. Brown's a different type of receiver than Calvin Ridley is, but again, it just forces a defense to say, what the hell are we going to do? That's why I would love the Titans to make that move.
What the hell are you going to do if your fantasy league is not really active or competitive? Well, maybe you feel like your draft is too predictable or there just isn't enough strategy. Then you'll want to check out LeagueTycoon.com today. LeagueTycoon.com is the site that is built specifically for contract salary cap leagues. And a lot of people want to upgrade their redraft to a contract salary cap dynasty, but they're overwhelmed by the amount of work required to set up and run the leagues. When you create a contract league on LeagueTycoon.com, everything is built in and automated for your league. No more spreadsheets, and even with no experience, you can have a contract league up and running in minutes using their optimized default settings. Best of all, League Tycoon makes it easy for new players to understand and manage their team by providing top-of-the-line mobile app and website service. So, head to LeagueTycoon.com today and get started. Trust me, your league will thank you. So, head over there, LeagueTycoon.com. Want to thank them for being a sponsor of today's show. Let's start with round 3 of the takes that are hot. And you know what? Who didn't start yet? Tags, you didn't start yet. Let's start with you on a round 3 here for a little hot take.
All right, and this is one where projections really do help, just because you start to get a feel as to some players you're lower on than you should be. I was always saying that Amari Cooper was going to be the number 1 receiver in Dallas. He's the better receiver. CeeDee Lamb's a fine player, but he's meant to be in the slot. But fortunately, when doing projections, I was able to find enough targets for both of these guys to say it is a little bit bold, but Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb both finished as top 12 wide receivers this year. And I'm saying that because Amari came in as the wide receiver 12, CeeDee Lamb wide receiver 14. So I'm really not far outside of my projections. And if I give CeeDee Lamb just one more touchdown, which is definitely possible because he is the best red zone option on this team, he goes into the top 12 territory. So all of a sudden it's like, hey, this is not that bold for me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rank CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper that high, but what I do know is that this team has plenty of pass attempts available. Michael Gallup's in the final year of his contract. Would it shock me to see them move on from him in the middle of the season? Maybe they trade him towards the trade deadline if this team's not destined for the playoffs, because again, he's on the final year of his deal. None of that would shock me. But again, Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb finishes top 12 fantasy wide receivers.
I love that because you know how much I love the Lamb. This is like it's like a honey chipotle, I feel like. This is the one that kind of like catches you on the back end where you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But you're like, ooh, that is a little spicy though. Just a little bit of kick at the end just because you do know there's going to be that difficulty of two guys on the same team getting to that level, but I think if any offense can do it, it's that one. Speaking of the Cowboys, here's my number 3. Dak Prescott finishes as QB1 overall in fantasy. How you doing? People forget, a couple years ago, he just missed 5,000 yards. Then he played 4.5 games. He was on incredible pace. This offense was unbelievably good. That defense has gotten better, but it's still certainly not great. They're going to have to throw the ball a ton, do a whole lot. Ezekiel Elliott, if indeed there is a little bit of wear and tear starting to catch up with him, then Dak Prescott is set up with all of these weapons, with all of this defense that is still questionable, with all of this season and an extra game, I think, to really potentially hit a mark. And we've seen, look, it was Mahomes, it was Lamar, it was Josh Allen. 3 years in a row, we've had a different guy as QB1. So why not Dak Prescott this year? That's where I'm going. Yates, where are you going with your third hot take of the day?
Let's go with Jamar Chase finishes as a top 12 wide receiver in his rookie season. With Justin Jefferson, we saw that last year where he just exploded, came out of nowhere. Everything is lining up for Jamar Chase to have a ridiculous rookie season. And we've talked about that here, the three of us. We've talked about how we really like Jamar Chase and his opportunity, reuniting with Joe Burrow. The amount of pass attempts, the amount of 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets that Cincinnati runs, Jamar Chase is going to be on the field 100% of the time. He's going to have a ridiculous target share to work with. And I think that he leads this team in targets right out of the gate. So I don't know really if we have to even wait for that Justin Jefferson, right? Like we had to wait for Justin Jefferson, 3 or 4 weeks into the season last year. I don't know if we're going to even have to wait for that. I think that Jamar Chase is going to come out of the gate swinging. So I will go Jamar Chase finishes as a top 12 wide receiver.
I want to ask you a follow-up question on this one. Here it is. Do you think that you would take him over any of the lower rung wide receiver ones right now in a draft? Would you take him, let's say, over an Allen Robinson or a Keenan Allen, just in the anticipation of him reaching that number? Or do you still wait and take those guys with the track record first? Because I think it's fair when you start to get to that bottom of wide receiver 1, top of wide receiver 2, do you go ahead and be aggressive on Chase if you believe all the data that you're seeing and believe all the projectability of him?
Well, so first, the way that you phrased that question, that I have a question for you, and it is this. It reminded me of Perd Hapley from Parks and Rec. So I think with, no, because you have to look at it in percentage chances of what can happen, right? The most realistic outcome. So with Jamar Chase, can he finish as a top 12 wide receiver? Absolutely. But the percentage chance of that happening is smaller than an Allen Robinson, than the other guys that you mentioned, because of just their track record, their opportunity, the proven targets, right? We know the target share that Allen Robinson is going to get in this offense. We know that if he's healthy all 17 games, that he's going to get a ridiculous target share. So the percentage chance of him hitting that return is certainly there. But as far as a wide receiver 2 on my team, I would absolutely love to have Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I'm curious, like I said, also because the uncertainty of the quarterback situation in Chicago and the fluidity of it, if that starts to go, well, Joe Burrow, that's kind of locked in. We feel good about that. Unknown about Dalton, unknown about Fields, unknown about when that transition, if, how, when all that happens. Sure. All right, let's move on here. Where are we at? Is it tags? You're back again, or we're starting with round 4? Did we get through round 3?
We did.
I'm telling you, the sexy shot is really kicking in. And for those of you who are laughing, it's like I said, I've gotten my second vaccination shot yesterday, and as Yates warned me, it's gonna kick in and it's gonna be a problem. But it doesn't matter. I'm here for you anyway, because this is our show and this is important to do. So, Yates, let's start with you here for round 4. Give me your hot take for the 4th one on this show today.
Yeah. So we're ramping it up here, all right? So we're getting spicier as we go along. Let's go with Tua Tagovailoa. We'll finish as a top 12 quarterback. I love what Miami has done to surround Tua with talent this offseason. With adding Will Fuller, who opens up everything underneath. With Jalen Waddle, with the heavy investment, reuniting him, of course, with Tua Tagovailoa there. They're going to be able to utilize Jalen Waddle the way that he should be, which is a low ADOT, right? Low average depth of target, and then letting him create yards after the catch, which is what he is so good at. And then you've got Devontae Parker, who he learned to grow and trust throughout the year. Tua talked about it at one point during the season last year, saying, I've never had to throw into contested situations. I've got to learn to trust my receivers. And so I think with Devontae Parker, he learned to do that. You've got Mike Gesicki. You've got some talented running backs out of the backfield too. So I think all of this is aligning for Tua to be at least in this range, right? I wanted to stretch it a little bit. I wanted to get a little spicy here, but I think that people are sleeping on Tua Tagovailoa. just because he did not come out and set the world on fire last year in his rookie season, right? Because we've just grown so accustomed to rookie quarterbacks like Joe Burrow, like Justin Herbert last year, coming out and lighting it up right away. That does not mean that Tua cannot still be a very, very fantasy relevant quarterback. And especially with all the investments that they've made, especially on the offensive line too, all of it says to me that Tua is going to be a value. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit here and say that he's going to return top 12 value.
I like it. And you know what? Every single thing was against Tua last year, between the locker room feeling of what was going on when they replaced Fitzpatrick, the injury, the OTAs not being there, the preseason not being there. I mean, what did we all expect? I mean, I think it was a very difficult level for him to come into and just succeed out of the gate. So hopefully you're right, and hopefully the Dolphins, who continue to build in the right direction, are indeed going in the right direction. Tags, what's your fourth hot take for the show? Make it scorching.
All right. This one is that we have a wide receiver who's being drafted outside the top 50 at his position, going to finish top 24. It's Mike Williams. He's going to score double-digit touchdowns and finish as a top 24 wide receiver this year. He already has a 1,000-yard season under his belt. He already has a 10-touchdown season under his belt. He's now playing with, at this point in his career, the best quarterback that he's ever had, because he had the very end of Phillip Rivers' career where he was on the downward trend, whereas now Justin Herbert. And the reason that Keenan Allen, had a heads up on Mike Williams didn't even get to play in training camp. He was dealing with an injury through there. He plays very, very volatile. He throws his body out there. It's kind of ridiculous. If you just go and watch Mike Williams play week to week, like, the guy puts everything he has on the field, and sometimes it causes injury. But if he makes it through a full season, again, I know this is a hot take to say that Mike Williams is going to make it throughout the full season. But in reality, he's played 15 games each of the last 2 seasons, 16 games in 2018, but he's been nicked up in and out of games throughout that entire time. But again, tied to a good offensive coordinator, or tied to Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen is a guy that's dealt with injuries through a lot of his career too. He's the clear-cut number 2, and if Keenan Allen were to go down, this is a guy that's going to get 8 to 12 targets per game. That's a league winner right there. Mike Williams is the ideal wide receiver 4 on your bench, because I don't even think he needs an injury to perform, but if there is one, he jumps into every single week auto start territory.
Well, I guess here's the big question too. Obviously at that ADP, or the ECR, wherever he's at right now, you can justify taking that shot. But is that anything you should rely on? Like, you don't want to wait and say, okay, well, Mike Williams is going to fulfill this role as my lock, fantastic wide receiver 3, or maybe even play like a 2 or a 1. We've all seen him have those moments, but I guess the thing I'm saying is, do you really want to rely on that? Like, you need to build that in. He's a bonus. I just want to kind of drive that home for the listeners, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of what you're saying, right?
For sure, and that's why that's why I say he's the ideal wide receiver 4 to have on your team, because again, if he's going around wide receiver 50 in drafts, that's a wide receiver 5 territory. So if you're drafting him around the wide receiver 42, you're going to get him. And then again, you don't have to rely on him every single week. But when he is playing and when he is on the field, I do believe he's going to be a top 36 play most weeks, if not top 20.
And one of the things that go keep him on the field is Magic Spoon. That's right. Magic Spoon is a different kind of cereal that you haven't been accustomed to. It's got 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, and it's only 140 total calories. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, GMO-free. All it's got is taste and protein, and it's good for you. And we've got exciting news, because Magic Spoon is releasing a super delicious new flavor, birthday cake, and that Magic Spoon flavor is available in a special 5-pack for a limited time only. So get it while you can, or build your own box. There's available flavors to build your own custom bundle, whether it's cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, or cinnamon. You can put them all in there. Plus, if you're listening in Canada, Magic Spoon ships there now, so not just in the U.S. So I assume in Canada they got Menards too. I'm just assuming it's everywhere but where I am. But Magic Spoon is everywhere. So go to magicspoon.com/fantasypros, grab the new limited edition birthday cake or the custom bundle and try it today. And be sure to use that promo code FANTASYPROS at checkout and save $5 off your offer. And that is good right now, off of your order. Go anywhere in the US or Canada, but only when you use that code FANTASYPROS. So once again, that's magicspoon.com/fantasypros, and get your cereal on. Let's get our next hot take on. I've got my number 4, and that is, after yesterday's news, which was very depressing for me. I'm a big Jeffrey Wilson guy. I loved the workload he got at the end of the year. He looked good doing it. I'm very depressed that he's going to be missing the opening of the season, but that does open opportunities. So here's a scorching hot take. Trey Sermon leads the San Francisco 49ers in rushing yards in 2021. I am not a Mostert guy, never been a Mostert guy. Now the Wayne Gallman signing makes a lot more sense. Clearly they knew something else was going on there with Wilson. So they have all the depth, but I think at the end of the day, I think Trey Sermon, as the season goes on, might surprise everybody. And look, it might not take that much because of this RB by committee system they have there for him to hit this number. It might be 750 yards or something like that for him to lead the team. So it's hot in the sense of who it is, but not hot in the sense, I think, of the total that I'm looking for. But hey, you hit that number with half a dozen touchdowns, all of a sudden you become a very useful running back in fantasy. Guys, your thoughts on Trey Sermon and this recent Jeffrey Wilson Jr. news?
Well, real quick, I want to chime in on this just because the 49ers, if they go to Trey Lance faster than let's say that Garoppolo starts 5 games and then they go to Trey Lance at the bye week and then from there, this running back situation was always like, hey, it's fine, it's a timeshare. Kyle Shanahan's awesome. There's plenty of carries to go around, but if Trey Lance takes over, all of a sudden we're talking about a lot more carries going to Trey Lance than the running backs. So you're gonna have to dial that back a little bit. So losing Jeff Wilson for a little bit of time obviously helps this. I'm a little bit torn on this. I still think Mostert's the guy this year at the start. But when he suffers an injury, and I say when because he hasn't been able to withhold that big workload, I do believe that we're going to see a fantasy superstar in Trey Sermon because every running back that kind of walks into Kyle Shanahan's system just kind of turns into that. And Trey Sermon is competent enough to make the most of that opportunity.
So maybe this is not as hot as they thought it was. Yates,
No.
You think this is hot?
I don't think it's hot at all.
Okay. So this is like the dry rub wing that has no sauce on it at all.
No sauce.
So
no sauce.
Oh, wow.
Whatsoever. No,
This is
sauce
sriracha
on
sauce.
I think with Sermon, him leading this backfield, this running back, this RBBC in rushing yards and touchdowns, what you said, Joe, I don't think that that's crazy hot. But I also don't know if that leads to a ton of fantasy production, right? Because, like you said, the number there of 750 and 5, rushing touchdowns, and that's a low-end RB2, high-end RB3, maybe even mid-RB.
Hey, it's a pretty good flex guy that you can get on the cheap in drafts. That's what I'm looking at.
It's not like you're sitting here and saying just because he's going to lead this team in rushing yards, it means that he's a top 15 running back, right? Like he can still be someone who's on that edge of someone that you can plug in if you're in a pinch, but not someone that you really, really want to rely on.
All right, so let's wrap things up here. We'll see if we can get hotter with some of these takes to close things out here for you today. Yates, kick things off with us with hot take number 5.
All right, this is the spiciest one I've got. I'm just going to present it without commentary. You ready? Adam Trautman will finish as a top 5 tight end.
Top 5 tight end. Okay, justify yourself.
I said no commentary.
No, I don't think you can. I think you need to comment.
You can't do this.
Tags, you got to comment on that a little bit. You can't just do that and walk away. Although that is, I guess, the that is what hot takes are. You just say something wacky and walk away.
I'm just going to throw I am completely closing my eyes. I've got a dart in my hand. The dartboard is about 30 feet away, and I'm just going to throw it, and I'll see if it hits. No, I think with the opportunity in this offense, that's what it comes down to. Okay. Someone's got to step up. Someone's got to step up outside of Thomas and Kamara, and if Jameis Winston is a starter like I'm projecting, then there's an opportunity here for Trautman, and I liked his talent coming out last year. So
not a Traquan Smith guy. Is that what we're saying?
I think that Traquan Smith can absolutely be relevant, but I'm saying that if Smith doesn't step up, then someone else has got – I mean, it's Michael Thomas, Kamara, Traquan Smith, and Adam Trautman. Those are the only guys that we should be looking at for fantasy, and I think that are going to see significant opportunities, and Trautman's got an excellent opportunity in front of him. You just
threw your boy Jonnu Smith under the bus just now because you're saying he's going to be better than Jonnu. Is that what you're saying? Or is Jonnu Smith tight end number 1 overall?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Jonnu Smith is tight end 4. No, in my projections, Trautman is not going to be anywhere near this range, right? I think he'll be outside the top 12. But I'm saying that from a just opportunity standpoint, I think that he can hit that range.
I'm just breaking your chops. All right, Tags, finish it out here. Hot take, and I got mine. We'll close things out here. What's your hot take? What you doing?
All right, so this one is a 4th-round pick, going to be better than a 1st-round pick. And I'm going to say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire finishes ahead of Jonathan Taylor at the end of the season. Jonathan Taylor, we've talked about the fact that, he's going to be battling for some carries. It is somewhat of a timeshare. It's almost like going back to nothing has changed outside of the fact that they re-signed Marlon Mack to get him back on the roster. They're going to, I don't want to say they're going to throw the ball a whole lot more. I don't want to say that they're going to be a lot more efficient because it's Carson Wentz, not Phillip Rivers. You know what I mean? The offensive line losing Anthony Costanzo to retirement was obviously big. They did a good job in replacing him later in the draft, or in the offseason. But I don't get it because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be we'll call him the 80% guy. And he's playing for the number one offense in football, which means scoring opportunities are going to come aplenty. He's involved in the passing game a lot more than Jonathan Taylor is. There's just a whole lot of things that just don't add up for me, especially when you add in their draft costs. So if you were like, I'd take Jonathan Taylor over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I get it, I guess, but I don't think it's a clear-cut thing where it's like, I'll take this guy in the 4th round rather than him in the 1st round every day of the week.
Well, what is it you see also in the Chiefs' evolution of their offense as they continue on? I mean, they're such a good team, and we've seen Patrick Mahomes, make these incredible plays, and always he's fun to watch, and he makes throws that hardly anybody else on the planet can make.
Yeah.
But we've also seen as he's gotten better that running back role go from what it was with Kareem Hunt to kind of fading into the background. Now, there was moments in that beginning of the season where you saw CEH be really good. But what is it that you're thinking in year 2 with CEH and Mahomes that all of a sudden that gets to that point where these guys are in that same conversation? Because right now, in terms of ECR over on FantasyPros, they're not. They're a good 10 spots away from each other, I think, or somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So that's a big divide. So how do you make that leap, I guess, or is this more of an indictment on Taylor than it is an endorsement of CEH?
Well, it's more that Taylor is being overvalued right now. So where I drop him down into that low end RB1 conversation, and that's where I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire belongs. I think that they belong in that same tier, that same conversation. I'm not saying he's head and shoulders above or anything like that, because he is going to split some work with Darrell Williams. But I think part of it came down to the Chiefs is I think they lost their way. Andy Reid was always the guy that was running the ball a ton. They were highly efficient, and then it turned into Mahomes, and then slowly you started to see it go, we're just going to abandon the run, kind of like the Bills did last year. But then you get to the playoffs, and you have to be able to run the ball if that team is bringing pressure. They didn't do it. It seemed like they came out in the second half of the Super Bowl and said, hey, we're going to run the ball, and they started to run the ball extremely well, but it was too late. It was way too late at that point. They have to have a better rushing attack, and then you add onto the offensive line Orlando Brown, who blocked for the Ravens, obviously a great run blocker. You had Kyle Long, who was one of the best road graders in the game for Jordan Howard. He was a Pro Bowl guard. He just stopped wanting to play for the Bears. I think Kyle Long still has plenty of football left in him. So this offensive line has gotten a lot better. I think that they're going to be a more balanced team going into 2021.
All right, last one to close it out. Here you go. I don't know how hot this is. I think it's pretty hot considering what everybody else says. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. He's going to stay in Green Bay. Everybody's going to kiss and make up. Aaron Jones is saying, but buddy, I came back to hang out and play with you. And Devontae Adams saying, but don't leave me here all by myself. Come on. This is all a bunch of grandstanding and nonsense. Aaron Rodgers, week 1, is going to be there playing football. They're going to kiss and make up. Everything's going to be fine. And Aaron Rodgers is going to have another very good season. And the Packers will also get yet probably a game or so away from a Super Bowl, but fail in the end because that's what they do. But there you go. There you have it. Those are our scorching hot takes. We can certainly listen to yours as well on Fantasy Pros, so make sure you respond to us here on the YouTube channel. You can drop yours in on the little chat there, or you can hit us up on the Twitter machine as well on all of our different channels there on Fantasy Pros on Instagram or on Facebook. I want to thank the sponsors of today's show as well. We've got some good ones here. LeagueTycoon.com. Once again, contract-style, salary cap dynasty leagues, but easy. That's what you want. LeagueTycoon.com can make that happen for you. And also, don't forget about Magic Spoon, that cereal that is magical. Only 140 glorious calories, none of the sugar, all the protein. That's what you need to make all your hot takes. Go to magicspoon.com/fantasypros, and you get $5 off of your first order, where every day, every morning can be birthdays for you because you have the birthday cake flavor. That's what you want. So that'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. Make sure you check out all our great work over on Fantasy Pros. For Tags and Yates, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.